Welcome to Political Beatdown. I'm Ben Meiselas, joined by Michael Cohen. If it feels like the dictatorship stuff is accelerating right now, that's because it is. As Donald Trump has faced resistance and opposition that I don't think he was expecting, he's trying to kind of package the full dictatorship rollout right now in ways that we really haven't even seen before, and that's saying a lot. I mean, it really began this week when they had the leader of El Salvador, Nayib Bukele, was there, and they did the whole authoritarian, oh, we don't know nothing about these people. They are just terrorists.
We can't bring them back. I don't know how to do it.
We can't bring anything back. And then it went into, hey, Bukele, you need to build 5 additional centers for homegrowns for Americans, right? That's what they did next. And then, throughout the week, Donald Trump continued to, just make these very overt authoritarian statements that he's not following court orders. The regime had all of their spokespeople go out and basically say that if you are aiding and abetting due process, you're a terrorist, right? Gorka was out there making statements like that. And then you have Donald Trump just again freaking out the markets. Yesterday was an atrocious day in the markets. You look at all of the respective Federal Reserve surveys in the different districts and states, and they're now beginning to see the signs of what the tariffs are causing, which is bad economic data. And Jerome Powell, as the chairman of the Federal Reserve, who Donald Trump appointed, right? Trump appointed Powell to be the chairman of the Federal Reserve in 2017. He spoke at the Chicago Economic Forum or Council earlier this week, and he said, is kind of what the data is, right? He's an expert in the area, the same way Dr. Fauci is an expert, or in a certain area, giving you the data. And it's very similar. The way Trump attacked Fauci for trying to give the information, right, about COVID, they're doing the exact same thing with Jerome Powell, attacking him for putting out the information about the financial disaster that's unfolding. Donald Trump.
Ben, it's what's interesting in that concept there. Join me on this because I really want to see your expression. You have an individual who then, after they attack Jerome Powell, they send out the enablers. They send out the machine to go onto mainstream, lamestream cable news media to regurgitate the propaganda. And I find it interesting that they bring out, of all people, Kevin McCarthy. Kevin McCarthy, who went to college for a Bachelor of Science degree in marketing, is now speaking out as to the incompetence of Jerome Powell, who went to Princeton with a bachelor's degree in economics, who then went to Georgetown Law School, and then ultimately became one of the managing partners of the Carlyle Group, which is like $1 trillion fund, one of the biggest funds in the world. So it's really funny. It's like going to your cardiologist. Actually, let me rephrase that. It's like going to your podiatrist to talk about a neurobrain surgery that you need. They're just in a completely different world, right? From head to toe. And it's comical that he sits there in his suit with his congressional pin, trying to look all smart and shit, turning around and actually trying to debase and to denigrate a guy who actually knows what he's talking about. So to your point, Ben, exactly the same. It's exactly what they were doing to Dr. Fauci. You're talking about an epidemiologist who has been at this for 45, 50 years, being lambasted by somebody who can't even spell the word.
Because they then blame the data for the problem, right? The data
Right.
reflects the problem so you can diagnose it and solve it. But remember what Donald Trump said. If you don't test, then the problem doesn't exist in his own mind, right? So if Jerome Powell doesn't say that the data is bad, then Trump can say the data is good, even if the data is really bad. And Trump could go on and Trump could go and say over and over again, actually, inflation is down. Things are great. Housing is more affordable. Things are amazing right now. Things could not be better, when we know that's not the case. Like a miracle, it's all going to go away. So Kevin McCarthy was one of the first to kind of speak those talking points, but that's it. Jerome Powell is the reason the market's crashing, not Donald Trump, is what the MAGA Republican propaganda machine says. Blame Powell for accurately describing the problems to try to fix it. It's why in the Substack that I wrote this morning on MeidasPlus.com, and Cohen, you wrote a great Substack as well that we posted on our Substack as well. One of the things that
by the way, before you go into yours, I just want to thank you, because I don't want to forget, for putting up my Substack, which I entitled "When Silence Wins, Everyone Else Loses." It means a lot to me. And when you read it, and so on, understand, like, this is very personal to me, because of my father's youth, where he basically spent, his youth in a concentration camp in Poland, right? And so I see so much of the bullshit coming out of this administration. So I want to thank you and Midas Touch for posting it. And I ask everyone to read it with that understanding.
I want to talk about that too, because I want to get into that this Abrago Garcia issue is more than just about Abrago Garcia. It's more than the 200 other individuals who were sent to the El Salvador extermination camp. It is the logical extension or the illogical extension. But what Trump wants to do is, let's be honest, that's where he wants to send Michael Cohen. That's the next step, and I don't mean to put it so bluntly, but that's the reality. And then once he gets the Cohens and the New York Attorney General Letitia Jameses and people like that, I'm right under their necks, almost right there, but under their necks. And then, the people who are watching it, whether you think you're not, or the MAGA people, the farmers who complain that Trump is screwing them, you go there, even if you're MAGA, the people who supported Donald Trump in these red states because they thought it wasn't going to be them, they go next. And that's what your Substacks. But I want to talk about the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeal order in a little bit as well. I've read a lot of orders in my time as a lawyer. This one was probably the most, I almost cried reading the order about how powerful it was in defending the Constitution. A Reagan-appointed judge, Judge Wilkinson, wrote it, but we'll get there in the show. I want to bring us back to Oval Office today. Donald Trump attacking Jerome Powell and saying, if I ask him to leave, trust me, he will leave if I fire him. Here, play this clip.
Mr. President, on Jerome Powell, you said that the termination of Jerome Powell cannot come fast enough. He says he won't leave, even if you ask him to. Do you believe you have...
If I ask him to, he'll be out of there. But
do you believe you have the power to remove him, and are you trying to do that?
I don't think he's doing the job. He's too late, always too late, a little slow, and I'm not happy with him. I let him know it, and if I want him out, he'll be out of there real fast, believe me.
So, are you trying to...
No. The funny thing, Ben, is that there's nothing wrong, nothing with Trump expressing his difference of opinion as it relates to the Fed. Right here, President Donald Trump announced his nomination of Jerome Powell to be chairman of the board of governors of the Federal Reserve System. This goes back into 2017. There is nothing wrong with Trump expressing a different view as it relates to interest rates and so on. Here's the difference. While there's nothing wrong with it, there is something fundamentally wrong with his failure to acknowledge that he has a tenure, and that tenure is not over for like another 2 years, another 18 months to 2 years. And the notion that the executive branch has this unlimited power within which to fire the Federal Reserve chair simply because he doesn't agree with him, because he won't do what he wants. This is a real problem. This is a problem that goes further than just even Donald Trump. This is a problem that goes straight to members of Congress who, as I wrote in my Substack, they're silent. They're silent members of Congress. The media, they are silent. What they should be doing right now is screaming out in the Oval Office, sir, you can't do that. Let me be very clear. You may turn around and tell the American people that you have the ability to fire. No, sir, you do not. You need to look that up. Number one, there is a separation. You just are not capable of doing. In fact, if you think that you are, why don't you do it right now? Do it right now in front of the American people, in front of all of the cameras, in front of the Prime Minister of Italy. Do it in front of everybody and see whether or not Jerome Powell is forced to leave and to resign simply because that's what you want. But nobody does that. Nobody's challenging. Media's not doing it, or the 77 million people that voted for him that are now silent. They're silent as to the rule of law. They're silent as to the unconstitutional actions. They're silent as to everything. And, as I wrote in my Substack, there's a very famous saying, right? First they came for them, right? Who's going to be there to protect these people that voted for him when ultimately everybody else is already gone?
And one of the points that you've made, which we've seen, is the oligarchs who support him,
yes,
and supported him, are actually some of the people that he looks to first and says, I want $1 billion. Give me another 50 million. Give me why are you so rich? I'm the one who made you rich. Give me your money. Oh, you don't want to give me your money? Okay. See what happens to you. Why? And how do you know that? One, because you know him. But two, if you look at people like Putin, who Trump emulates, the Kim Jong-uns, the MBSs, they do this. They engage in this type of behavior. The thing about Jerome Powell also, interest rates were being cut until Donald Trump's tariffs. We would have had more interest rate cuts right now had Donald Trump not initiated a trade war against the world. The Fed made very clear with transparent data what their plan was. They had a target inflation rate at 2%. When it would hit 2%, they would do more rate cuts. And we were expecting multiple rate cuts this year as there was a soft landing and no recession that everybody predicted would take place because former President Biden allowed the experts to be experts. He did what he could do to create stimulus in the economy, Inflation Reduction Act, Infrastructure Act, PACT Act, CHIPS Act, all of the things that he did, American Recovery Act, and the economy went into the right direction. Donald Trump takes power. Donald Trump starts tariffing the world and creating trade wars against the world, and the fundamentals of our economy are upended. Look, Cohen, there may be days where the market goes up and then it'll go down. But the clear sign of where this is headed is down, right? Where the Dow was in 2024 was like 45,000. And now it's, 39, 40, 38, 39. It's going in this direction. But folks, the stock market shouldn't just be the metric of the economy. I mean, you have to look to other areas as well, in the economy. I think more importantly than how the stock market's doing, even though lots of people's pensions and 401ks are tied to the market, is housing more affordable? It isn't. Mortgage rates are reaching record high levels right now, 7% mortgage rates. People can't afford to buy homes. Inflation is surging. Donald Trump can pretend it isn't. It is going up. Prices of things are more expensive. And it doesn't help when Donald Trump declares a trade war against the world, when he now has, 245% tariffs on China, when you now have Hong Kong stopping its postal service from sending things to the United States. China has cut off its rare earth mineral exports to United States businesses. It stopped its contracts with Boeing. These things that become headlines today, the headlines of tomorrow are unfortunately when we're going to see businesses default on loans, when we're going to see layoffs, and those necessarily lag, but we're starting to see that now. And that's all Jerome Powell, was talking about. And what's Donald Trump's message? What's he and Caroline Leavitt, his chief propagandist? What do they keep saying? We're just waiting for China's call. Xi Jinping, please give us a call. China was prepared for this trade war. China can wait it out. China is actually taking surgical steps to inflict harm on the American economy, whereas Donald Trump is, just like a madman, with like a super soaker, like spraying it everywhere, and there's no intelligible thread of why he's doing this, right, Cohen? So what Trump's plan, if you think there is one, is to unite the world to isolate China. So you do that by declaring a trade war on the rest of the world?
Sure, because the exact opposite is exactly what's happening right now. China, who has nothing but goods to produce, is now going to produce goods and buy their goods from other countries. The arrogance to think that there's something that exists in America that doesn't exist somewhere else in the world. Okay, maybe we're talking about certain military equipment, some technology and so on. But here's the thing. America was never selling it to the Chinese anyway, right? It's a joint venture between Israel and the United States in weaponry, like, for example, the Iron Dome. They were never going to get that technology. So what is it? What is it that the United States is actually selling to different places around the world? Yes, our F-16s and so on and so forth, but we're not talking about the same way that China sells to America. What does China really sell to America? Well, it's about 80% of the shit that you buy on a daily basis, whether you go to the Amazons, whether you go to Walmart, Costco, Myers, whatever the big box stores, whether it's going to be, for example, your sneakers out of Vietnam, Trump MAGA hats, whatever the hell you're buying, it's manufactured in China because it's cheap, and Americans like cheap goods. The funny thing is that if you look at the various different polls, and all of you know how I feel about polls, if you look at the ones that have come out, you listen to Bullshit Barbie turn around, and I'm talking about Caroline Leavitt, and say America is being right now contacted on a daily basis by these foreign countries who want to invest in only America, to the tune, and of course, parroting what Trump said, $7 trillion. Now, if that's true, that's fantastic. It means there's going to be so much money going around in America, nobody will know what to do with it. Here's the problem. It's a lie. All right. We heard the same lie going back into 2017 when Trump went to Riyadh, came back and said, well, he got $250 billion from the Saudis, $250 billion from the Emiratis, $250 billion from the Qataris. Boom. I went ahead and I got $750 billion. $750 billion. My Secretary of the Treasury, Steve Mnuchin, who's a genius, is going to turn the $750 billion with bonds into $7.5 trillion. There's going to be so much money. None of that money came in. None of it. It is a lie. So when you project everything into the future and nothing comes in, his hope is that Americans, in his mind, are stupid and that they will forget that he is telling you today that $7 trillion is coming in because this yo-yo said this yo-yo said that. From the immortal words of Jerry Maguire, show me the money. When that money comes in, I'll turn around and I'll say, yeah, I was wrong. Trump managed to get $7 trillion in. I've watched these lies since the day that I've met him. He over-exaggerates the number by like a billion-fold. And then when nothing happens, it's so many months, year down the road, people don't even remember. That's why Midas Touch Network, Political Beatdown, myself, I'm like a fucking elephant. Ben, like 2 elephants. And I'm not talking about his weight. I'm talking about his mind. We don't forget shit. And I will be able to remind you today, tomorrow, next month, 6 months, a year from now, as will Ben. Right? And we don't pull back. We don't pull back the punches because we're afraid of like what happened with ABC or MSNBC or CNN, where they are petrified to turn around and to say anything negative for fear, all out of fear. We won't.
Well, yeah. I mean, when Trump sued you, you said, all right, let's sit for your deposition, big guy. Sit for your depo. And
Sure.
he didn't. What I want to share along that point, though, is what I wrote in my Substack this morning. And here's a line from it where I say, Trump has found the ultimate mark in these zombified MAGA mush brains whose craniums have been turned into red globular jelly by Fox. And I can show you an example of that. And this is why someone like a Jerome Powell is a big threat to Donald Trump and MAGA. It's why a Dr. Fauci is a big threat to them. You know, they prefer an RFK Jr., a Dr. Oz, a Sean Duffy, you know, someone who fits their prototype, Pam Bondi, Christine Noem, right? A stupider,
right?
A stupid Pete Hegseth, a stupider version of The Apprentice. As I've said, when I watch these Trump cabinet meetings, it is the worst season of Apprentice that didn't even make it to air, meets Kim Jong-un into this bizarro world. You know, that's not normal. So state regime media has to reflect the weirdness, right? Like, as immature, unprofessional, and dangerous as the Trump regime is, state regime media has to overcompensate, right? You know how people overcompensate when they're trying to hide a tragedy or they're trying to hide something, so they act all like something like you're not behaving quite normal, right? So this is what's happening on state regime media known as Fox right now. So what they do is it's getting weirder and weirder. I have to monitor this on the Midas Touch Network, so y'all don't have to, and I'm not going to play a lot of clips, but I just want to show you, with all of this going on, with Americans being, with migrants in America being disappeared and Americans being threatened to go next to extermination camps in El Salvador, as Trump's crashing the markets and engaging in the most reckless trade war in the history of the United States, as the shore is receding and the tsunami of economic crisis is coming, winter is coming, the saying of Game of Thrones. What are they talking about on state regime media? Well, they're all like married to each other on Fox 2. So you have Ainsley Earhart, who's married to Sean Hannity, and they're all on like multiple marriages because they're all married to each other now. So Ainsley Earhart, Sean Hannity's wife, hosts the morning show. And one of the things they're talking about in the morning is how they like eating food off of the floor. And so they talk about, they love to drop their food and then shove dirty food in their face. And then they say, you know who was the best at eating dirty food on the floor? Pete Hegseth. He would just take his bagels and he would smear them on the floor. And then he would shove the dirty cream cheese with dirt on it in his face. I'm not joking. This is what they talk about on Fox on a day-to-day basis. Here, watch it.
And survive in the world because there's germs everywhere. Joe?
Let's put it to the test, shall we?
Oh,
A banana from the green room.
Don't.
There it goes.
No.
1, 2, 3,
Stop.
4.
No, but that's
Are you
wet.
going to eat it?
This is there is so
Do I
much
do
junk
it?
on this. No, please.
You
Everyone's
work her every day.
feet are
Don't they
disgusting.
vacuum this thing?
No, but look, the bottom of our shoes walk around New York City. No. Okay, should we go ahead and call out sick for him next week?
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Let me get a doctor. See,
Oh.
that is the wrong consistency. I'm going to be really.
I'm going to
I
tell
think
you
I'm
what.
gonna go now.
This guy is definitely auditioning for the Pete Hegseth seat.
Yes. Pete Hegseth
share
would
that.
drop. Okay, Pete Hegseth would have a bagel with cream cheese. He would drop it. It would land upside down, the cream cheese on the floor, and he would pick it up. I'm like, wait, is there any hair on there?
Oh no!
It is so gross, and he would just pop it in his mouth.
There's
Didn't
also a
care.
rumor that Pete did not wash his hands after.
He said that one time on air. Yeah.
Really? In every scenario, he
He's
wouldn't
tough.
wash his hands?
He's like an army guy. You know, he's tough.
Tough is one thing, but there are certain.
Look, I agree.
Yeah, could you imagine all of a sudden after he finished, he's like pulling out one of their extension hairs, you know? It's really just fucking stupid and it's just completely disgusting. But Ben, can I just bring us back for a second when I want to vomit from them. Could you imagine when I turned around and I said one of the biggest issues about like what I had written about in the Substack is when silence wins, when we just talked about how we here on Midas Touch Network, on Political Beatdown, and the various different programs on this network will never let you forget. I want people to remember how many days ago was Signalgate? How come we stopped talking about that? Where's the investigation into that put all of our national security at risk? Where is the investigation opened? And again, who do I blame for this? I blame members of Congress. Now, I know there are many members of Congress on the Democratic side that want to open up investigations. Unfortunately, the committees are all run by Republicans. They can't even get this off the ground. There has to be an outlet for accountability. We're talking about our national security. Look what just happened. You have the shootings at FSU and so on. Now, all of a sudden, that's so drowned out because of the stupidity that is coming out of D.C., out of the White House, on a second-to-second basis. People aren't even talking about Signalgate anymore. We just stopped talking about it. Why? Again, because now we're talking about Abrago Garcia. We're talking about this homegrown terrorism. We're talking about illegal protests. We're talking about Trump's defiance of the court, the Supreme Court, the decision of the 9-0 decision, which, of course, Stephen Miller and Bullshit Barbie and Pam Bondi and all of the rest of them are turning and saying, no, Democrats, you all have it wrong. That 9-0 was in favor of this administration. We now have a carte blanche within which to grab anyone, and that means you, my friends, to grab anyone, something I've been warning people about for almost 4.5 years, right off the street, right from your house of worship, from your school, from your home, and take you and shove you up, not into a facility in your area where you then can have an attorney come present or a state-appointed attorney present for you. No. They take you, they ship you off to like Louisiana where the judge appears to be in Trump's pocket, and then they fucking deport you to an internment camp in the middle of El Salvador or into the Panamanian jungle. This is not a joke. And this is why we have to constantly, on a day-by-day basis, keep this community active, vigilant, but most importantly, informed. Because you can't forget. You cannot forget about Signalgate. These fucking morons. And I apologize sometimes for my language, even though it's just me as a New Yorker. I am so furious at the fact that they placed all of our national security at risk. And I was there when the World Trade Center went down. I was merely like 30 blocks away. I'll go one step further. I was actually in the World Trade Center in 1992, or was it 91, when the first one, remember when they blew up in the basement, a car with explosives? I happened to have been in the building having lunch. And I want to tell you something. It's terrifying. We, as Americans, we expect our leaders to keep us safe. That's really their job. Not only are they not keeping us safe, they are placing us in harm's way. And for what reason? Because they clearly have to be doing something wrong, something illegal, something nefarious, something underhanded. Otherwise, why the fuck would you use Signal? Why would you do that? It makes no sense at all. Ben, take it away.
We got a lot to do. We got a lot to discuss. I want to talk about the bagels being I want to talk about the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals ruling. I've read a lot of rulings in my 15 years of being a lawyer. You've read a lot of rulings, Cohen, in your legal career. This one from the Fourth Circuit hit different. It was written by a Reagan-appointed judge, Judge Wilkinson, with a unanimous panel that said basically some cases are tricky. This one isn't. Basically, return Abrago Garcia. What do you facilitate the return? Follow what the Supreme Court is doing. We have a constitutional crisis. And if you don't follow this Trump regime, you may think that you've won and you may get away with it for a little bit. But ultimately, your lawlessness will be your undoing. That's what the order essentially said, almost verbatim. Like, sure, you want to defy us. You want to defy the Supreme Court. You don't want to facilitate his return. You may be able to get away with it, but ultimately you're going to crash under the lawlessness that you're creating. Powerful, powerful words. Want to remind everybody to subscribe here. Read Michael Cohen's Substack. We have it on our Substack. It's on his Substack. Ours is Midas Plus. His is the Michael Cohen Substack. A lot of people have read. I think we've had 200,000 people on the Midas Substack have already read your article, Cohen. So it's definitely getting a lot of traction. Big audience. Fastest growing Substack right now in the world. And I know yours is growing fast too, Cohen. So support both Substacks. Patreon.com/Political Beatdown. We've officially we had the town hall this week, but it's officially set for next Tuesday. We're going to hold our Patreon. They posted it. We're on it. Patreon.com/Political Beatdown, where Michael Cohen and I will meet with everybody. We're excited to do that. Subscribe to Michael Cohen's YouTube at The Michael Cohen Show. You've always had great hot takes, but particularly great ones lately. And his podcast, Mea Culpa. Subscribe to the Mea Culpa podcast, the blue podcast. You see it right there wherever podcasts are available. Mea Culpa. We've got a lot to discuss still. Cohen still hasn't given his two-finger salute. Of course, that's going to happen and more. Let's take our first and only quick break of the show.
You know, some nights I just want to relax without wrecking myself for the next day. No hangover, no fog, no what the hell happened to my workout routine. I mean, that's why I've been turning to Sol's out-of-office gummies. It is a total lifesaver. Now, here's the deal. I stick to the CBD ones only. I mean, they help me unwind, they help me to clear my head, and they keep me grounded without the high. For someone like me, who's juggling 1,000 things and still trying to dodge insanity, CBD hits the sweet spot. Calm, focused, present, and not waking up feeling like I did shots with Rudy the night before. Now, Sol is a wellness brand that believes feeling good should be fun and easy. Everything they make is from organically farmed, USA-grown hemp, vegan, gluten-free, and low in sugar. So basically, I can feel good about what I'm putting into my body, which is more than I can say for half the things I did while I was working for Trump. Now, my friends, that's a different story. I hand out CBD plus THC gummies like party favors, and they love them. It's a great buzz, good vibes, no hangover. Everyone's happy, and no one's texting their ex at 2 a.m. And if you like their out-of-office gummies, you got to try their new out-of-office beverage. It's alcohol-free, refreshing, and perfect for sipping without sabotaging tomorrow. So bring on the good vibes and treat yourself to Sol today. And right now, Sol is offering my audience 30% off your entire order. Go to GetSol.com. That's GetSol.com and use code BEAT, B-E-A-T. That's GetSol.com, promo code BEAT for 30% off. And trust me, whether you're CBD, THC, or, I don't know, little of both, Sol's got your back. Go there now. You ever look in the mirror after a week of political insanity and think to yourself, wow, I look like I just did a 3-year bid at Otisville with no moisturizer. Yeah, well, me too. Long work weeks, chaotic weekends, and stress that ages you faster than a Trump deposition. That's why I tried Prolon. And let me tell you, it's the real deal. Prolon's 5-day fasting mimicking diet It's like hitting the reset button without actually starving yourself like you're trying to sneak past the feds. I mean, it's all plant-based, soups, snacks, teas, all of it scientifically designed to nourish you while your body thinks it's fasting. Basically, it tricks your cells into rejuvenating like they just got a subpoena and need to clean up their act and fast. And now, boom, they've dropped the next gen version. Same science-backed magic, but cleaner, tastier, 100% organic and ready to eat. Because who has time to fast like it's 1999? I mean, I did the original program, felt like a new man. Now, I'm all in on next gen because this isn't just about looking good on camera. It's about feeling good off camera too. Look, this stuff is no gimmick. It was developed at USC's Longevity Institute, and it's backed by top US medical centers. I mean, we're talking biological age reduction, better skin, more energy, fat loss, metabolic health. Basically, it's like turning back the clock without even having to sell your soul. So here's the deal. For a limited time, Prolon is offering Political Beatdown listeners, get a load of this, 15% off site-wide plus a $40 bonus gift when you subscribe to their 5-day program. Just head to prolonlife.com/beat. That's PROLONLIFE.com/beat. And give yourselves a little beatdown of their own in the best possible way.
Welcome back to Political Beatdown. I love how you integrate being in prison into ad reads,
into
Giuliani's.
moisturizer.
There's a lot of gems in those reads.
And I ram them in now. Or, a lot of people were saying, the commercials are really long. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot that they want me to, to talk about. But now, no longer than 75 to 80 seconds long for each. Because, you know what? A 5-minute, 4-minute commercial, it is just too long. I'll let people do their own homework, their own investigation into the products. Because the products, they're great.
I want to absolutely acknowledge the senseless killings, another school shooting, this one at FSU in Tallahassee, at least one person dead, several injured. We're learning more about the shooter. I think the son of a deputy sheriff who just went out and started shooting people. It's never enough that you can just say that your thoughts and your prayers and your heart goes out. It's
all right.
We're beyond that. We need to take steps that stop this senseless violence, this horrific scourge that's uniquely an American issue because of the fact that MAGA Republicans and others fetishize weapons of war and have a fetishization of a gun culture at the expense of lives. Now, I believe strongly in the Second Amendment. I have people in my family who are gun owners. I believe people should be able to hunt. I believe people should be able to own a weapon. The distinction becomes when you start talking about weapons of war by schools. I think common sense gun control is something everybody should agree with. I think it's in the Constitution. The words well-regulated are in the Second Amendment. And I think it's just despicable that we've hoisted the NRA above the lives of people. So I wanted to say that right now. Donald Trump's already saying, nothing I'm going to do about it. He goes, these things happen.
These things happen. Could you imagine?
He said,
not
these
when it was
things,
under the Biden administration. Remember that? Or anything else, Ben?
He goes, these things happen. And he says, I'm not doing anything with the Second Amendment. Those are his words.
And you know what he will do something about?
Definitely transgender volleyball player.
A transgender athlete who he claims, right, a male that's transgender, is transgender, was playing on the girls' volleyball team that spiked the ball so hard that hit this one young girl. I forget what her name was, that he paraded up before the State of the Union address, hit her so hard that it caused her brain damage.
Was going to be an Olympian, she said, but I'm permanently disabled, and the story is highly
She was going to be an Olympian. I think she's 5'4", right? And look, with all due respect, nothing with 5'4", but you'll find that the Olympian volleyball players generally are 6 feet and above. I mean, you do have to jump high enough to spike the ball. I mean, there's only a handful of people like a Spud Webb who was like 5'5" that can do a 5-foot vertical. I don't think this young girl was. But imagine he's going to go after this, but he's not concerned about the mass shootings that have been plaguing this country now for a long, long time.
Because they view it's all a game and pretext to justify what the goal is. The goal is cruelty and control. Like, that's the goal. Trump doesn't really care about anti-Semitism. He cares about using it as a way to control Harvard and to get Harvard to bend the knee. I mean, Donald Trump has said and done things that are not helpful to the Jewish community if you look at a lot of Trump's actions historically. But he uses it as a wedge issue to divide. And he tries to find all of these wedge issues as ways to divide people, disrupt communities, and then he feasts like authoritarians do in the divisions that are being created. Cohen, what he hasn't mentioned once, he hasn't talked about. There was a question asked him once, and he said he didn't know anything about it a few weeks back. But the 4 soldiers who died in Lithuania, 4 American soldiers, doesn't mention it once. 2 service members were killed near the U.S.-Mexico border in a vehicle accident this past week. A 3rd service member involved in the accident remains in critical condition. Bet you didn't hear Donald Trump say anything about that. And I'll tell you why, because Donald Trump believes people who are killed working for the government, or service members rather, are suckers and losers. That's what Trump said about them before. So he doesn't want to acknowledge that because of his reckless war cosplay at the border, 2 people died, 1 person was grievously injured, or that there were deaths in Lithuania. But under former President Biden, he will politicize the shit out of it when it was caused by Donald Trump's reckless and precipitous actions and giving in to the Taliban, releasing 5,000 Taliban prisoners, and then not making good on the deadline while the Taliban surrounded a base. Former President Biden had to do what Donald Trump didn't have the courage to do, but they criticize that all of the time. If you look about when former President Biden's popularity started to break, it was when the right wing started politicizing Afghanistan.
Ben, do you know why? Do you know why that Trump wasn't speaking about these service members who lost their lives? Because he was busy winning yet another golf tournament. That's what it was all about. God forbid he should take some time out from the 14th hole from his chip in order to go on television and to mourn the loss of service members, whether it was the 4 or the 2 or any others. God forbid he should take out of his very important stroke, right? His very important day of dividing this country, of creating hatred and animus between Americans in order to pay respect to those who are protecting our democratic republic every single day, to those who are protecting the Constitution as best as they possibly can. That's the problem here. It's all about priority.
Cruelty's the point. I mean, you see these MAGA Republicans who are going to the El Salvador prison and they're doing the thumbs up pose in front of the people.
I can vomit from that.
I mean, there's multiple examples of this. This MAGA Republican Congress member, Riley Moore, they show up in front of one of the cages and they put their thumbs up. We know that there's 75% of the migrants who were disappeared from America to this extermination camp did not have a criminal history. Did not have a criminal history. When you talk about Abrago Garcia, 1, did not have a criminal history. 2, the Supreme Court said, return him 9-0. 3, the Department of Justice said it was a mistake to send him to El Salvador. You can try to give me any argument after that. But yeah, MS-13 and 29. No, No. Stop it. Supreme Court said 9-0, facilitate his return. So shut the F up. That's what they said. Facilitate his return means facilitate his return. He has no criminal history. It says that on the document. No criminal history is what it said. There was a withholding order in 2019, withholding order saying if you want to deport him, you can deport him to another country, not El Salvador. You can't bring him here. And then the DOJ said it was a mistake. Now, what the Trump regime will say is, look, but there was this confidential informant in 2019 that said that he was affiliated with MS-13. Well, isn't that a cell phone? Who was president in 2019? Donald Trump. So you let the biggest gang member of all time in 2019 roam the streets. In 2019 and 2020, the king, the leader of the MS-13 is, according to you, the Trump regime in 2019, 2020 knew that. And they were like, cool. No, it said no criminal history. Now, there was a crooked cop who claimed a confidential informant told him that Abrago was a bad guy who was an affiliate. This cop then pled guilty to like crimes of paying prostitutes and giving classified or confidential information. Like a bad cop was the person who made the allegation, which was never proven. And yes, in 2019, an immigration judge said on that basis, even though it was a spurious accusation, if you want to deport, you could deport him to other countries, but he needs to check in to ICE like he did. But you just can't bring him to El Salvador because he'll get killed in El Salvador because he fled El Salvador. They'll kill him there. And what does the Trump regime do? They send him to El Salvador. This is a very clear, not complicated situation. And the Fourth Circuit says that this is not complicated. What you are trying to do is kidnap people, disappear them to El Salvador or other countries, and then say due process does not apply. And the Fourth Circuit said, no, that's not the way our system works. And the Fourth Circuit said, this is how they ended the order. While there is still time, while there's still a constitution, reflect on this executive branch. And they said to him, look, Trump, you may ultimately defy our order, the Supreme Court order. You may think you're being smart. You may think you're tricking the world right now. You're not. By embracing lawlessness, you are entrapping yourself as an illegitimate regime, as not standing for law and order. And so you may get away with Abrago. You may get away with the group that's there. But ultimately, by doing this, you've imploded your entire credibility, which I think they've imploded already. So that is how they approach this order. And then they said, no, we're not getting, just follow what the district court judge said. What the district court said to Cohen, the district court judge, Judge Zenas, very smart, because she knew what Trump would try to do and say, oh, you're encroaching on the executive branch. So Judge Zenas didn't say, return him in 2 days. Judge Zenas said, give updates on the status of your facilitating, give details. And so when the Trump regime refuses to do that, Judge Zenas, the federal judge in Maryland, is building the record, I think ultimately to hold him in contempt. By the way Judge Boasberg did in Washington, D.C., who held him in criminal contempt. And that's where this is heading, Cohen. So where this is all heading, criminal contempt. Judge Boasberg has already made a probable cause finding that when the Trump regime did not turn the plane around and when the Trump regime didn't obey the order, that's contemptible. And Judge Boasberg said, look, you can cure it by returning the people or list me the names of the people, and I'm going to find these people in criminal contempt. And if the DOJ doesn't prosecute it, I'm going to appoint a special counsel that prosecutes it and throws these people in jail. That's what the judge said. Did you notice Cohen Trump was asked about it today?
Yep.
And he kind of threw the lawyers. He threw the lawyers under the bus. He goes, that's the lawyers, not me.
That's right.
They don't have immunity. They don't have them. They don't have immunity.
Oh, trust me, I know all about him throwing people under the bus. You know, when you put up Riley Moore, when I was writing my Substack from this morning, Ben, he's exactly who I had in mind for the two-finger salute. because he is merely a vessel for Trump's bullshit. Imagine you have people behind these gates, right? In these prisons, in these concentration camps, these internment camps, they're like gulags, who are being abused. And as you said, the plurality of them do not even have criminal offenses against them, including some who shouldn't be there at all. This two-finger salute today goes to every coward in Congress, just like Riley Moore, who stood and still stands silent. To every one of the billionaires who bankrolled this hatred, to every anchor on television, on mainstream, lamestream cable news television, who twist the facts into propaganda, to every one of those 77.5 million voters who looked the other way because it wasn't them who was being targeted. All right. I hope to God that of those 77.5 million people, that some of them are coming out of the stupor, the sheer stupor that they are in as they fell for this cult of personality. But to all of those, the cowards, the billionaires, the anchors, again, who turn this all into propaganda, fuck you all. Because the shit that we wake up to every day, these posts at 4:30 a.m., 5 a.m., 6 a.m., the things that are stopping us from remembering, the things like the Signalgate or some of the other hellacious things like the imprisonment of the students from, whether it's Columbia, from Tufts, from anywhere, from the actions that are being taken place against the institutions right now, Ivy League or not, simply for them to turn around and to make people fearful. Fuck all of these people. All right? Fuck you all.
There you have it, directly from Michael Cohen. Hey, Cohen, you've got the Michael Cohen Show YouTube channel, which is crushing it, at the Michael Cohen Show. Everybody check that out. You've got the Mea Culpa podcast. Everybody subscribe there.
Blue one.
On Tuesday, we'll do Patreon, patreon.com/political beatdown. We'll do that together. Excited about that. And I do want to show people the Kevin McCarthy clip where we started off at the outset. Please. That you mentioned McCarthy, so people can know that you're not just paraphrasing what he said, but Kevin McCarthy, spineless Kevin McCarthy, disgraced former Speaker of the House, goes on Laura Ingraham to blame the economy doing bad on Jerome Powell talking about the data. It's exactly, they're Fauciing him is what they're doing. He's the fall guy and saying the reason it's going bad is because of Jerome. And that's what they did with Fauci. The reason it went bad is because of the scientists. As I also said on the Substack today, this is Donald Trump's flawed pathology. He turns a problem into a mistake he compounds into a bigger mistake. He takes the bigger mistake and then he turns it into a catastrophe. And then he turns the catastrophe into just total bankruptcy. He's repeated that pattern his career, and his decision-making tree goes completely out of whack the moment he faces resistance. The MAGA Republicans in Congress just allowed it all to go down. They just accepted him to just crush him. And it's odd. The Democrats stood up to it. The judiciary is standing up to it and standing strong to it. Foreign countries are standing strong to it. He thought he could write some tweets or posts about Canada, and they'd be like, "Oh my God, oh my God,
oh my God!" He posted about us. Let's, you know what? Let's not argue.
Let's become the 51st state. Oh my God, I guess we're going to have to be annexed. But the boycott in Canada, they are crushing right now. I mean, travel's down massively, boycotting American goods massively. Europe's doing it as well. Also, regardless of just like the fact that Trump's threatening, these countries on a day-to-day basis, I mean, it's also, you show up in the United States, there's no due process. I remember, Cohen, my think I've told this story before. You know, when all my friends wanted to go on a spring break trip in another country, my dad wouldn't let me go, and he would say they don't have habeas corpus in these other countries. So no, I'm not letting you go. I'm like, what's habeas corpus, Dad? He goes, you're not going. You're just not going. That's the conversation that parents are having with their kids in other countries. You're not, I want to go. You're not going to the U.S., son, daughter. You're not going. Why?
Yeah.
They may send you to El Salvador extermination camps when you cross the border. That's not the America I know. But when you see enablers like Kevin McCarthy, in many ways, they're even worse than Donald Trump.
Agreed.
Because they try to put lipstick on the fascist pig. Here, watch it.
Kevin, I want to talk about what Jerome Powell did today. He essentially came out and said that these tariffs, which the Democrats are going to seize on, obviously, that the tariffs are going to, likely to create some type of recession, and that will hurt U.S. growth forecasts going forward, which, I mean, obviously the Trump administration thinks the exact opposite about how these tariffs will work. But of course, that sent the market way down. And you can kind of see this little game playing out between Powell and the Trump administration. Do you think the Trump administration needs to come out in a full-throated manner and refute what the Fed chair said today about an issue that is still number one on the minds of all voters now and will be on the midterms?
Well, what he said is hurting the economy. The market reacts to what he said. Now, he only has a short amount of time left in this job, and I think there's some excellent people who can take this job going forward. But remember what President Trump has already done if you want to look at pure economics. He's getting people to invest billions of dollars in a
Yeah, powerful.
No, it's not billions. He's claiming that they're investing trillions. Again, like from Jerry Maguire, the movie, show me the money. Show me the money. And I'll be right here on Political Beatdown to say, holy shit, the guy brought $7 trillion of foreign investment into this country. I'm turning, and I'm going to call this right now, that money ain't never coming in. All right? They'll lie. They'll say, oh, yeah, this one's investing. Who in their right mind is going to invest $1 into the United States when you don't even know what the policy is going to be? Whether or not you're going to open up a factory, next thing you know, boom, you're out of business. You just invested your money in the United States. It's almost like the same way that Americans don't invest their money in China.
Yeah, well, now people are looking there, though, and going, hey, is that better? Where do I go? Should I go on the London gold market? And that's the problem. That's why the dollar is at like its weakest point since what, like 1995? Yeah. Consumer confidence is the second lowest since 1952. All of these Fed surveys show manufacturing expectations at its lowest levels, like literally ever since September 11th. Reporting on the data is not the problem. The data is reflective of the problem. And the problem is the maniac sitting in the Oval Office and who he surrounds himself with and all of that. The resistance and opposition needs to continue to grow. We continue to grow. We do. I mean, this network is the most watched network on digital. We get more views than Fox News right now. And I put news in quotes. That's good. That means we're getting out truthful, accurate information to many, many, many millions of people. That's good, but it's just the start. We have to keep growing. We have to keep building this movement, as Cohen always says, each and every day, brick by brick, piece by piece. That's what we're going to do here.
Can you imagine? So what do you have, about close to 5 million subscribers on Midas Touch Network, the biggest that's out there in terms of independent news source. Imagine if that number wasn't 5 million. Imagine if that number was 50 million. And I know, people say, oh, how is that? Imagine it's 50 million. And imagine now, I don't know, let's say some jerk-off Republican, Trumper, wants to turn around and run against the Democrat who wants to fight for women's reproductive decision-making, who wants to fight for the Constitution, for due process, for the rule of law, wants to fight for veterans, the elderly, Social Security, Medicaid. I could go on and on and on. Imagine what the 50 million people can do, thinking and remembering that this entire 2024 election swung on 1.94 million votes. All right? So please share this network with your friends. If each and every one of you shares it with one friend, be well over 10 million in a week. Just think about that. Think about the power. Think about, remember the mortgage crisis? Nobody got held accountable. Why? Too big to fail. Make Midas Touch Network too big to fail. Make them the counterbalance to the bullshit of Fox. Just imagine. Imagine we turn around and we say to you, we are all in next week on Monday meeting in front of in the Great Lawn, in front of the Washington Monument, in front of Lincoln Memorial, wherever. And imagine 10 million people show up screaming, pissed off. Let me tell you, that's the only way to get to these fucking people, to get to these members of Congress, because at the end of the day, the only thing they care about is their job.
We've got a big crowd still here watching us live. I want to tell everybody, if you wanted to see my breakdown of the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals opinion, I go through every line in the opinion. And we posted that video just now. So as soon as this ends, go check out my review. It's on the Midas Touch feed. Watch it, because I didn't want to miss a single word in my description, so that you could share it with people you know and say, here's what the opinion actually says. So that video is out there right now. It's on our feed. It's loaded. It's called Trump Gets Destroyed by Appeals Court, and the Abrago case. So go and check that out now. Cohen, it's been great. Patreon.com/Political Beatdown next Tuesday. We'll be there. The Brother podcast tonight, 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific. We'll see you all there live, me and my brothers. Excited for that. You've got the Mea Culpa podcast, wherever audio podcasts are available. And you've got at the Michael Cohen Show YouTube channel. Check it all out. Thanks, Cohen. Thank you to our sponsors. The discount codes are in the description there. Support our sponsors. They support the show. And Jordy spends a long time negotiating those deals with those sponsors. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you to MTN.
Shout out Midas Mighty. Shout out Cohen. Shout out Brigaders.
Boom.